What's up, everybody? This is Brad, and we've got some news to talk about that dropped last night. It's news that we knew was coming at some point. We just didn't know, when. But now we know. Nintendo has revealed officially that the Wii U and Nintendo 3DS eShops will be closing March 2023. I don't have the exact date in front of me, but yeah, it's the end of an era. That's what I said last night. The 3DS is probably my favorite handheld console ever. Like I had a fond attachment to my Nintendo DS. I think not DS crap. SP. I think it was the not Nintendo Game Boy. Uh, that last Game Boy, the one that flipped. I had a red one, I think. So yeah, that was a pretty cool little console. I always thought that was cool. But the 3DS has become like it was amazing to me. I love my 3DS. Some awesome games on that thing. Super Mario 3D Land, I still think is one of the most underrated Mario games you could play. When people, I think anybody who's actually played Super Mario 3D Land will actually say that. So, yeah, if you've never played Super Mario 3D Land, please try to find a way to get that. It's a really good Mario game. It's not the most complex Mario game, but there's just something about it that just is very, very fun to play through. And I used to use it as just like a, if I got a free moment and don't feel like playing, some longer, more complex game or something, I'll just open up Mario 3D Land. Of course, another thing that I always love about my 3DS is I had Super Mario Brothers 3 on it. I've said this several times on this channel. I've bought Super Mario Brothers 3 legitimately several times because it is one of my favorite games of all time, and having that before the Switch, um, which you can't buy Super Mario 3 on the Switch. I'll get to that in a little bit, but when I bought Super Mario Brothers 3 for my 3DS, that meant at any time I wanted, without internet, if I was in the middle of somewhere or whatever, if I had my 3DS on me, I could play Super Mario Brothers 3 anywhere. Now, you can't really say that about the Switch because you have to uh, be online to play those games. But anyway, um, and as far as the Wii U goes, I had a lot of Wii U games. I'm pretty sure I got all of the must-own 3D Wii U games. Most of those games got ported to the Switch. There's a few that didn't, and but I've played pretty much every game for the Wii U that you really should play. But it's kind of, but the thing here with this is you got to remember Nintendo already has announced previously that you can no longer use credit cards to put funds into your Wii U or 3DS accounts now. In August of this year, which is what, like 6, 7 months away, maybe, uh, eShop points won't be allowed. If I remember correctly, something about that. You won't be able to use eShop cards. Um, Let me look that up real quick. I want to be right here. Here we go. As of August 29th. Let me go back and get the original date for this. Oh, it just says late 2023. Okay, we do not have a specific date for the eShop shutdown. But August 29th, 2022 will no longer be possible to use Nintendo eShop card, a Nintendo eShop card to add funds to an account in Nintendo eShop on the Wii U or Nintendo 3DS family of systems. However, it will still be possible to redeem download codes until late March 2023. But anyway, so this is going to take a year to shut this thing down, which is good in terms of that at least they're not shutting it down next month and have people having to scramble. But I've already seen some people saying like, well, I'm fixing to take to Amazon, or I saw, well, specifically I saw somebody say eBay to get, find some cheap games on the 3DS or Wii U before they become incredibly expensive and hard to find. Which is pretty much the main problem with this. A lot of these games are going to be unplayable now. Like, of course, like there are going to be NES games and Super NES games that are on the Switch Online. But again, you don't pay, you're not buying the games from Switch Online. You're paying for access to those games. Granted, I do think that the deal that you got, where you could play those games as much as you want, as long as you were online, uh, is a decent deal. And they're working to improve the expansion pack for it, which includes the Nintendo 64 and Sega Genesis, as well as DLC for Animal Crossing and Mario Kart 8. But again, you're not buying these games. You're not buying to have them to use whether you're online or not. You have to be online in order to play them. But but like I said, there's a lot of SNES and Super NES games that Nintendo can't legally put up because their licenses expire and they don't have the rights to put them up on their own service like that without having to get in touch with various other companies. You're kind of lucky that they decided to reach out to Microsoft for the right to put in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie on the Nintendo 64 catalog for Switch. That seems to be a pretty unique deal there. But even just look at Nintendo's own games. Earthbound only just recently showed up on the Switch. The Earthbound 1, Earthbound and Earthbound Beginnings, they only just added those a few days ago, and the Switch has been out since, 2017? So the Switch is almost 5 years old now, and those two games only just now got there. And there's still a few that aren't there now. Not to mention there's a lot of GameCube games that actually are completely unplayable at this moment, unless you have a Wii U. Which is where my concern is right now, for me personally, for games. But now the question is, what happens? Like, well, obviously, I think that the reason they're doing this now is, I think they're finally, at least to me. Now I don't know. They recently said that the Switch is in the middle of its lifespan. So we've probably got another 5 years of the Switch. I would say reasonably 3 to 4 years, but they probably could get 5 out of it. I've said before, I don't see a need to rush to a new system. Sony and Microsoft can't get PS5s and Xbox Series X's to people. So, I mean, they may be the current gen, but very few people have them. So, can you really call it the current gen when most gamers don't have them? And most gamers, I don't think, really care to get one. I mean, they're still incredibly hard to find. And we're years into these systems now. But the Switch is still incredibly popular. And they're getting games. The Switch library is massive. No matter what stupid crap Nintendo does as a company, at least you could say that the Switch has a very, very, very impressive library. But again, but somebody brought up, though, when Microsoft and Sony had done some similar things where people were very much upset about them. Like, Sony was going to shut down the PS3 eShop, or whatever they call their shop, the digital store. And I think maybe for the PSP too, or PS Vita, I can't remember which one. I think it was the Vita. But it was the PS3, I know specifically, was part of that. And people were very much mad because, again, very few people actually were able to get a PS5, and people were not ready to let go of their PS3s yet. So Sony reversed course and said, no, we won't do this. Microsoft did a similar thing when the pandemic first started. You saw people were like, well, looks like we're going to be sitting at home a lot more now until this thing goes away. Several years later, it still hasn't gone away. But, nobody really knew at the time what was going to happen, but people were anticipating, hey, people anticipated that a lot of companies would try to get their people to stay home for a little while so we could, get the virus under control, and then everybody could go back. But too many people said, no, it's a few weeks sitting at home. I can't do that. I don't want to do that. But anyway, Microsoft was going to jack the price up of Xbox Live. I think they even were going to double it. And people were very mad. Mad enough that Microsoft not only reversed course there like Sony did, but they also removed the paywall limitation of Xbox Live to play free-to-play games on Xbox consoles. So, like, say, Fortnite is free to play, but you have to pay for Xbox Live, or you had to, in order to play Fortnite online. Well, they took that down. So now, even if you're not paying for Xbox Live, you could still play Fortnite because it's supposed to be free to play. You don't have to pay for that. Now, I don't know if Sony does that, and I'm pretty sure Nintendo, you don't get that for Nintendo. But, but the difference here is, though, I don't think any amount of fan, this is the thing where Nintendo is at its weakest. You could say at least Sony listened in that case. At least Microsoft listened in that case. Nintendo does not care. Nintendo is set in their ways. What Nintendo says goes. And there's no questioning it. We've seen how fans have reacted. Fans were very much so upset that Super Mario 3D All-Stars was pulled from the shop after 6 months, all for a purpose of making it scarce. Digital scarcity is the same thing we talk about with like NFTs and stuff like that. People were very mad about that. So, what did they do? Nothing. You can't buy that game online anymore. Now, it's pretty easy to find physical copies of that game, so I don't really know, like, I've seen some people suggest that there may be that was sort of a conspiracy sort of thing. Maybe Nintendo never really stopped producing the physical copies of the game, and you could still find them pretty easily. Or maybe that many people just didn't care. Because there were issues with the emulation of those games, because those do use emulation, and we'll talk about emulation in a little bit. But it's pretty wild that, this was supposed to be a game that was going to be only available for a limited time, and you can go into pretty much any GameStop and find a copy of it physically. But they did pull it from the eShop, and they also discontinued Super Mario Bros. 35, which was that Battle Royale game, or Battle Royale game, however you say that. I don't know. I say, I don't know. But I actually really liked that game. The few times I only got to play it a little bit because I was playing other stuff, but the times I did play it, when I didn't get kicked off of it because of crappy internet connection, I really liked it. And I was actually pretty sure, given the backlash, that people are like, hey, why are you taking down this really fun game? Like, don't do that. I was like, well, you know what they'll do? I bet at E3, the following E3, they'll announce they've retooled this. Maybe they've upped it to like 64 players to reference the Nintendo 64 or something, or they've just renamed it from 35 or something. Maybe they'll call it Super Mario Bros. Battle Royale, and they'll re-release it in a slightly different, as maybe the same kind of game that does the exact same thing, but they've changed a few things on it. Like 35 could be the beta version or something, or demo version of what they wanted to do. But, nope. Nowhere to be seen. And they even recently did like a thing on the Switch where they were demonstrating how to delete games to make room on your Switch. And they deleted the data file for Super Mario Bros. 35 in that demonstration. So that's the kind of company Nintendo is. But they're not going to reverse course on this. They're not going to decide not to shut the Wii U down. I figure that part of the reason why they're doing this now is because, like I said, Switch is in its the Switch is at its halfway point of its lifespan. I figure they're getting ready to move on from the Switch, or start to move on from the Switch. Whatever the next console is, they're probably working on it now, or if not now, then soon. I don't doubt that they already have plans ahead of time. They've already got some concepts going on. But them shutting down the previous console, I think is a signifier that they're getting ready to move on ahead. They're getting ready for the post-Switch era now. Like I said, it could still be several years before we see this console or even have rumors of it. Of even like a first draft version of this thing. Because I feel like they're gonna milk the Switch for all it's worth. This has been a humongous success for them, and a humongous like the Switch is huge. Let's not pretend it's not. And I think they're going to want to keep that thing around as long as is possible. But I think this is what we're seeing. We're seeing the beginning. This is the end of the Wii U, and it's going to lead into the end of the Switch and the beginning of whatever comes next. So what do you do? What do you do about the games? Well, I know what I'm going to do. Which is going to be a problem because it turns out that, like I said, I'm learning more and more why people absolutely hate the Wii U. I looked up last night, went through the Wii U's eShop, seeing what could possibly be there. And most of the games I had put on my wish list there were just little games. I'm like, you know what, I may throw some, things. I like to add games to the wish list just to keep up with the ones that, even if I may not necessarily ever buy them, I like to have them where I can, like, see them, like, right away. Like, I have, like the first game, I think, that the last game I added to my wish list that's at the very top is, like, Street Fighter 2 Turbo Hyper Fighting. The SNES, that was the big one for the SNES. And see, I have the physical version of that game and the physical Nintendo Super NES. So, I already have that game. And the times that I've played it, like on stream, like when the few times I've streamed it on Twitch, I just emulated it because I already have the physical version of the game. Why spend $5 on a game that I have a physical version of? I'll just emulate it. But I would be willing to buy some of those games. However, I ran into a problem. The Wii U's internal memory is garbage. There's very little. Apparently, the very first Wii U, the original Wii U, only had like 8 gigabytes worth of storage. The deluxe version, I guess that's the one I have, has 32, and right now it has half of that filled. So I have 16 gigs worth of stuff. And one of the main games I want to try to get before this eShop shuts down is the HD versions of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker. Because I kept waiting through the Zelda 35th anniversary that they were I had really bet on them doing a Zelda 3D collection like they did for Mario. Like the All-Star collection. Didn't happen. You got a port of Skyward Sword, a little Zelda Game & Watch, and then a teaser trailer for Breath of the Wild 2, which still does not have a title. And what year did they reveal this? They have revealed it like 3 years ago, I think. Was it 2019? We saw our first footage of Zelda, of Breath of the Wild 2 in 2019. It is 2022, and we still don't have a title for this game. It's supposed to come out this year. And the most recent Nintendo Direct did not have anything for it. So, I don't know what's going on with Breath of the Wild, but Nintendo really did drop the ball for the Zelda 3D anniversary, in my opinion. An opportunity to release a collection with Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, and Twilight Princess on it, and have all of the big 3D Zelda games available for purchase on the Switch would be amazing. But this is also the same Nintendo that decided they were only going to put Super Mario Galaxy 1 in the Mario 3D collection and not give players anything for Mario Galaxy 2. Just a very strange decision. So I want to try to get HD, Twilight Princess, and Wind Waker on the Wii U before the shop closes. But the big problem with that is because the Wii U's internal storage is very, very limited. I think, from what I remember, it said that Twilight Princess's storage would require almost 9 gigs of the 16. So that's somewhere between 8 and 9 if I remember it right. Because it said like 8,000, like 8,600 megabytes, which it's like 8 gigs. But that's almost half of the that's a little bit over half of the available storage I have. And like there aren't many games that I don't have physically already. Like I said, I have most of the games that you really should play on the Wii U already. Like I got Pikmin 3 and Nintendo Land. Like let's not forget how old this console actually is. But there were a few that I missed, and there are a few Wii games you can buy digitally on there that I've never played. Like one of the big ones I wanted. The 5 big games that I want to get before this thing closes are the Zelda games. Well, I'll add some more. Not all of them. 6, actually. HD Twilight Princess, HD Wind Waker, Mario Sports Mix. I've never played that. There's a Wario Land game. I was like, what is it? Wario Land Shake It. And there's a WarioWare game I want to get. And then I'd like to get the Metroid Prime trilogy, because I've never played those games. I've heard rumors, just like the Zelda 3D collection, that supposedly there's a port for the Switch for the Metroid Prime games that's supposed to, I guess, sort of serve as a hype tool for Metroid Prime 4 should they ever get that out. Let's remember that they were working on that, and then they scrapped the whole thing and started over. But I would like to at least try to get those Zelda games. I figure what I'm going to do, and what most people are probably going to do for these games that are going to be unavailable, is probably just try to emulate them if I can. Because that's just the way that it works. Some of these Wii U games, or the Wii games they have not ported yet, like, you're not going to be able to play them. And looking into the Wii U storage problems, the article I read last night, Nintendo basically says that the only more reliable way to get more storage for your Wii U is to get an external hard drive with like 2 terabytes worth of storage on it that you have to plug into like an outlet to get it to run, and store your games there, because those are more likely to last longer. Because a flash drive, if you put your games on your flash drive and then try to play them off flash drive, you're going to burn your flash drive out very quickly. Because your flash drive's not meant to be constantly, it's not meant to be constantly in use like that. It's meant solely for storage. So I figure what I'm going to do is I'll fill up my Wii U internal memory as best I can, and then, or at least get the Zelda games, and then emulate the Wii games. Because those games are all probably like at least 15 years old by now. I mean, I guess that qualifies as retro. Now, if they ever port those games to the Switch, I would gladly buy them. And that's what I wish these companies would understand. I will gladly buy an old game again if you will make it available in a reasonable way. But when these eShops and stuff, I'm sure that the 3DS is going to, I think the 3DS library will hurt a little bit more than the Wii U. I mean, there's a lot of the same games on both, of course, but I think the 3DS losses are going to be really massive compared to the Wii U losses. But, because, remember, the Wii U, of course, is backwards compatible. You can play Wii games on it, and you can play Wii U games on it. Sort of like how the Wii was backwards compatible with GameCube games, which is weird to me when you really think about it. It's something I've wondered, when you swap over on Wii U, you can swap over to the old Wii menu, and it functions just like a Wii. Well, if you have a functioning Wii menu in your game, why can't you play GameCube games in your Wii U? I don't know. Maybe that would have made the Wii U a little bit more appealing. It's like, hey, you can play Wii U games on this, Wii games, and your GameCube games. There you go. That would maybe give people a reason to, or stores a reason to keep Melee in shops. Like, you could still be selling Super Smash Brothers Melee for like $20 in a GameStop if the Wii U could read GameCube discs. But I don't know. That's another thing I wish people would do, or Nintendo would do, is like, hey, you could sell an online playable HD version of Melee now that Smash Ultimate is over, and people would probably just buy the crap out of it. But they don't want to do that. But I don't know, man. Like, it sucks. But I've seen so many people going like, you know what? Yeah, we're just gonna emulate this stuff because they're not gonna make it available, and then Nintendo can get mad all they want. I mean, it's just like people were pointing out, like, this is like Nintendo's not going to listen to fan feedback. They just don't. Very rarely do they do that, and they only are going to do that when they think it's going to affect like their money. Like, one of the very rare, because Nintendo's famous for like sending cease and desist to anybody who makes a fan game. If you make a fan game using their titles or whatever and their characters, they will shut you down because they don't want your free-to-play free game or fan game to potentially discourage people from buying the real game that they made. Which, again, with Nintendo's concerns for piracy being completely just laughable, again, I will say this every time we bring this up, Nintendo is Japan's most profitable company. It is absurd for them to assert that piracy is hurting them when they make more money than anyone. So, ignore all that talk. Now, I don't like when people use emulation and piracy to get around paying things when you do have them readily available. But at the same time, if a company's not going to sell you the game, and you choose to emulate it because the company's not giving it to you, then what right does the company have to say that you stole from them? No game shop carries GameCube games anymore. If you're going to buy a GameCube game, if you want to play Super Smash Bros. Melee, you're going to have to pick that up off of like Amazon or something from like an individual. So Nintendo's not seeing any of that money. Like I said, if the Wii U could read GameCube games, then maybe they could still sell some of those GameCube games. Maybe you don't have to give up some of this old hardware. Let people play what they want to play. Hey, you want to play Smash Melee with only 26 characters and, and had, what was it, like 20 stages? Or do you want to play Smash Ultimate that's got like 80 characters and over 100 stages with like thousands of tracks of music? Let people decide. I'd wager most gamers would probably want to play both. But anyway, I don't know. It's frustrating. I get why it's time to do this. There's just game conservation stuff is just, it's so frustrating because, like I said, some of these games that are exclusive to the 3DS are going to be, they're not going to be able to do anything with those now. And like Pokemon Bank, I wanted to mention that. Pokemon Bank is supposed, you have to pay to use that. Store your Pokemon from, like the DS games up to the 3DS games. And then I think you can also use Bank. I think Bank also allows you to move from the 3DS to the Switch. So when you're transferring your Pokemon over from Black and White 2, Black and White, up to X and Y, and up to Sun and Moon, and then eventually up to Sword and Shield, you'd have to pay for that. But it's like $5 a year. But once the eShop goes down, that will become a free service. Now who knows how long, like the online services aren't ending yet. So that's at least one good thing. So you won't have to pay for Pokemon Bank after March 2023. But, it's still going to leave a lot of other games, in limbo. Like, Dragon, like one of my favorite games for 3DS. I I beat the PS2 version of it, and I loved it so much I wanted to buy it again for 3DS so I'd have it with me at any time I wanted it. Was Dragon Quest 8. Love that game. Beat it. Now the only way you're going to be able to legally buy this game is if you buy the mobile version. And I don't understand why like the Switch I think got the definitive version of Dragon Quest 11 before the other consoles did. So why don't they port Dragon Quest 8's 3DS game to the Switch and sell it? But again, that also offers the thing that I was talking about, wanted to touch on before, is like, again, when you're playing like Earthbound or Super Mario 3 on the Switch, you don't pay for those games, or you don't pay to buy those games. You're paying to access a library that will allow you to play that game, which is different. You can't take that game off of the internet. You have to be online to play it. And like they don't even give you that option. Like maybe some people would rather pay $5 for a 3DS, which at this or for Mario 3, which I think at this point those games, like you've gotten as much money I think you need out of those. It's time to do like Sega does with like the original Sonic the Hedgehog games and just offer them for free. Do you really need to keep charging people money to play the original Super Mario Brothers? No, you don't. Put these... People would probably have a much better reception to that. Like, why couldn't you offer... I've said this before. Make the SNES and the original NES Switch Online libraries free to play. Completely free to play. Here they are. Or offer downloadable versions of them for the people who want. Like, you pick which individual game you want to download to your Switch. And have games that are past a certain age be free to play. Be that 15 years, 20 years, whatever. I'd argue that any game on... I've said this before, any game that's on a console that is at least 2 years or 2 generations prior should be free game to emulate. Because now, like nowadays, you don't really see much for Xbox, like for Nintendo. If you go into a GameStop, the Nintendo section is almost entirely is entirely Switch games. I don't even think they carry 3DS games, like except like in stuff that people have brought back now. Certainly for the Wii and the Wii U games. It's going to be very hard to find these games physically. It already is, but now it's going to be even harder. But luckily, depending on the game, you can maybe find some for like very cheap. $1, $5 if you could find it physical. But it also really depends on your store, like where you live. Because some GameStops are going to have the real good stuff and some won't. That just, again, it depends on where you live and who's brought back games to sell back to GameStop. Of course, there's also other risks with buying some used games. You don't know if you're getting, like, I think I've told this story before. I once bought, like, I think it was like an $80 used copy of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for Xbox. And I was so excited. And when I got it home, it was the disc was unreadable. Luckily, they gave me a refund. This was years and years ago. But that was so disappointing. Because I'm sitting there thinking, like, why would you not check to see if this disc can be read or not before you sold it to somebody? But anyway, again, I would love to, if I get a chance, I want to look through the Nintendo 3DS eShop and see what they have there. But this is why emulation is not going to go away, and why Nintendo is just not helping themselves. Like, if you don't want people to emulate your games, sell your games. That's the primary reason, I think, why people emulate. Sure, you've got some out there who are emulating it to get around paying for games. Like, I've said this before. Like, I don't see the reason to emulate a game that's on the Switch Like, would you like? I wouldn't do that. I'd much rather have like my physical media, which physical media doesn't last forever either. But I've seen a lot of people talk about like stop supplying digital games. Like digital has its value, and yes, that's the problem with digital consoles. That eventually they do die, and the companies will abandon them. And your physical media will last longer, but your physical media also is only good for what, a few decades. There was a recent thing going around about DVDs are ending the end of their life cycles too. That within the next several years, DVDs or any DVD you have, or the first wave of DVD releases, should be becoming um, obsolete. You won't be able to use those anymore because those have an age, or an age. They have a time limit. But the answer to this, I think, is not complete dependency on physical media, and you have to abandon digital media altogether. It's that these companies need to preserve their digital media and make them available to players at a certain point where the company has maximized its profits off of those games. Nintendo doesn't need to keep charging $5 for Super Mario Brothers 35 some odd years, 35 to 30 to 40 years after that game has already been out. It's already made them so much money. Just give people that game to play for free while you sell them whatever the next Mario is. Like I said, any system 2 generations back, that would mean starting at the Switch and going back. Not the Switch, starting at the Wii and going back. Those games should be perfectly, like, if you choose to emulate it instead of buy it because of how hard it is to come across the physical media, then whatever. I think certainly past 20 years, if a game is at least 20 years old, you've gotten all of it you need to get. But I'm sitting there trying to think if there's anything else I didn't say that I was going to say, because I've been almost talking for 40 minutes. But yeah, if you can, if you've got a Wii U, if you've got a 3DS, get those games on there that you really want while you can, because who knows if they'll get ported. Like I said, that rumor about the Metroid Prime trilogy coming to the Switch, who knows? Like I said, that Zelda collection rumor was going around at the time, and that never happened. And you never know when Nintendo's going to pull a Nintendo and do like they did the Mario collection and just pull it off of their current system for no reason. But that's all I wanted to say. Just this is what happens, and Nintendo is pretty much the worst, I think. Well, I wouldn't say they're the worst, because at least you can play those NES and SNES games on the Switch, even if you have to pay for the online, and you're not really buying the game. But all of the game companies need to try to figure out a way to preserve their titles. But the reason why it's so bad with Nintendo is that they are the ones who are the true anti-emulation, and the ones who are have taken up the, like, we are the champions against piracy, even though we make more money than anyone else, which means, piracy doesn't hurt them. I mean, Nintendo recently just went out on a whole celebratory panel, gave themselves a big celebratory pat on the back for throwing a hacker on, like, a Switch hacker or something. They got him. They worked with law enforcement and the police and who knows who all else, and got somebody who was selling, like, hacked. I think they were selling hacked ROMs and hacked Switches, but they sent that guy to prison for 3 years, a little bit over 3 years. Like, imagine that. Like, this massively profitable company. And look, I'm not saying that, like, this was a good thing to hack a Switch and sell pirated games. I mean, don't steal content and don't steal people's merchandise and sell it as your own. I mean, that's not fair. But you got to spend 3 years in jail for selling, like, a hacked gaming console. I mean, like, and you know that's what Nintendo wants. It's not like they just like, hey, just give us the money you owe us for what you sold. Like, no, we want you in prison. We want you to lose access to your freedom. Like that's the punishment they felt was absolutely required of this. I don't know how much money that guy was making. Again, like I said, but if the problem is that Nintendo felt that they had money stolen from them, again, laughable because Nintendo is the most profitable company in Japan. Why would you not just sue for what the guy owes you if you believe he truly owes you that money? But no, they wanted the guy in prison. And let's not forget about the story where somebody was like hacking or had like hacked their 3DS, or I think it was a 3DS, just to tinker with it to see how it worked. Just some random nobody. Probably wasn't a nobody, but because I think it was somebody who had like a somewhat of an online following. I can't remember the story exactly, but even if they had an online following, it was mostly just like a random just person. It was just a regular person. They sent people to spy on this person for like a week and watch what he did for a whole week, where he went after work, what he did for his work, what he did when he was in home. And it said Nintendo was shocked to find that he pretty much just lived a regular life. Like they thought he was like some head of like a criminal conspiracy ring or like they thought this guy was just a gigantic like career criminal because he had hacked their system. No, it was just a dude tinkering around with his hardware. And then they actually confronted him. The spies Nintendo sent to see the guy knocked on his door, went in, introduced themselves, and said, "Hey, we're with Nintendo. We tracked your location through through the 3DS that you were playing around with, and we wanted to let you know we're not so fond of people using our hardware this way and hacking into it and playing around with it, and we would appreciate if you didn't do that anymore." Like, think about how crazy that is that Nintendo sent somebody to this guy's house to tell him to stop playing around with the hardware. Like, he wasn't hacking it to sell games. He was just trying to figure out how it worked out of curiosity. Nope. We're going to knock on your door and scare the crap out of you. Realize that Nintendo has the power to find where you physically live and confront you if they want, which should terrify anybody. And by the way, if Nintendo can do it, any big company can, and they probably do. But like I said, get your games while you can. If you go to emulation, if you can't get these games anywhere else, emulate it. I've seen so many people, so many big gaming people actually, with considerable followings going like, "Yep, just pirate the games. Like, go right ahead. They're not going to preserve them for you. They're not going to give them to you on the modern modern consoles unless they think they're going to make a killing off of it. So find a trustworthy emulation site and go to town. And that's all you can do. Like I said, I would the games I don't think I can emulate, I'm going to try to buy. Especially if I think they'll look better. But because I really do want to play the HD Twilight Princess and Wind Wakers. That's more of like that's more for the channel though. Like I would love to, like, if I'm gonna play Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, like if I can make it look as good as possible for the channel, then I'm gonna try that. But I also want it to look good. Like I want it to look good. I'm not gonna stretch the screen to out of its proper aspect ratio by emulating like the GameCube version of Twilight Princess and Wind Waker, which are not in widescreen. But if I can get the widescreen for, like I did with Mario Sunshine when I played that, I started emulating that, and then not long, like I only had just started my playthrough of Mario Sunshine when the 3DS, when the 3D All Stars collection came out that had Sunshine in it. So I just played up through the little bit that I had started and continued my playthrough on the official collection. But anyway, that's all I got. I've been talking way too long. If you made it this far, congratulations. So that's the situation. A lot of games going to be unplayable if you don't get them now. You got a year. Prepare. So thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. Support the channel if you can. Do check out all my other videos if you would. Like and a comment would be appreciated. And we'll see you for the next big digital shop closing whenever that happens. Get your games. Later.